well. How are you?
Good, I'm doing well. Alhamdulillah.
Just a quick note to our audience. Our guest of honor has just come out of a bilateral meeting with the president of Turkey. So as you can see, it's quite a whirlwind of events, busy schedules for everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, welcome to this edition of ADF Talks, where we engage with leaders who are reshaping the futures of not only their countries, but also their respective regions. Today we are honored to host His Excellency Dr. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, the President of the Federal Republic of Somalia. President Mohamud is now serving his second term, and I've just been informed that this is a first in the history of your country, and you've been at the forefront of your country's journey towards stability, unity, as well as regional cooperation. Under your leadership, Somalia has navigated some very complex challenges, ranging from internal security threats to regional diplomatic tensions, all while striving to further economic development as well as integration with the international community and networks. This ADF talk will focus on the President's perspective on the shared global responsibility to confront security threats emerging from fragile regions, particularly highlighting the interconnected crises of terrorism, political instability, as well as underdevelopment. Mr. President, I do have a confession to make. I'm very much against ChatGPT. But I was on it for about half an hour ago, and here's what I typed in. I said, what does the average person know about Somalia? And I want to read out its response, okay? The average person would say, Somalia, it's in East Africa, right? I think it's had a lot of conflict over the years, civil war, piracy. I've heard it's had a problem with terrorism. Let me ask you, what is the current situation in your country like today?
Thank you, Ali. ChatGPT is artificial intelligence which gathers a lot of information from the public domain.
Maybe if you could speak into the mic, yeah.
Yeah, from the, of course, public domain. And some of the issues that you said is absolutely right. We do not deny that Somalia has been in a very difficult situation for decades now. In 1990, the Somali state collapsed, and then we've been in 10 years of civil war, and then 12 years of successive transitional governments, one after the other, as a characteristic of post-conflict environment. And then in the last 12 years plus, we have a permanent government that has been working in the government, in the country, and the world has recognized it. Somalia has just went through difficult times, but now emerging from a collapsed state, failed state, into a fragile state. Fragility is another problem that has many developing countries are suffering. So Somalia today, you can say, not anymore failed state or collapsed, but it is a fragile in terms of economy, in terms of still our political institutions are not enough grown up yet. So the country is going through different stages, but we are making a very fast progress in the last couple of years. We get back our rightful position in the international arena. We stood up and fighting against the international terrorists. One is Al-Qaeda affiliate Al-Shabaab, and the other one is ISIS, both in different corners of Somalia today. And Somalia is leading that war. Yes, the world is supporting us, so many countries, so many international organizations, the United Nations, the African Union, all of them are supporting individual countries, among which the United States, Turkey, United Kingdom, and many others are the neighboring countries as well supporting. But the lead is Somalia. It is the Somali lead that has shown progress in the fight against terrorism. So Somalia is a country that has just turned the corner, established institutions, have its own constitution, preparing right now to go into a one-person, one-vote elections after 56 years. The last time Somalia went into an election of one person with universal suffrage was 1969. So this is the time again the voter registration is going on, and we are going to have local elections and national elections as well. So today we are member of the United Nations Security Council. Today we have joined the East Africa community. We are part of, we bring back all the status that Somalia has in the Arab League, in the African Union, United Nations, all these, the IGAT. So Somalia is, alhamdulillah, back to its rightful position.
We'll get to your position on the UN Security Council and the East African community and IGAT in just a bit. But here's the picture that you've painted. It was a country for many years, decades, that was characterized as a failed state, as a collapsed state. And now you've transitioned into a fragile state. But one of the problems that still persists, which you've touched upon, is terrorism, both in the northeast with ISIS and Daesh, and then Al-Shabaab. Talk to me about the issue of terrorism. It is not only a national problem, but it is a global problem. And how does it affect the current status in your country?
Well, both terror organizations that we are speaking about, Daesh and Al-Shabaab, which is an affiliate of Al-Qaeda, both of them, they don't have a national agenda. Their agenda is international, global. They wanted to fix a global problem, not Somali problem, but unfortunately, because of the circumstances of the past, they got the opportunity to start from Somalia on these issues. So that's what makes the whole effort of African Union, the United Nations, and many other international partners to get together to fight against them. So these guys, they have been occupying a major portion of Somalia, particularly the rural Somalia. Today, they are remaining in pockets. In a war, big war, there are always battlefields that you lose, battlefields that you gain. Up and downs are there, but the overall war, the Somali people, one of the success stories that we have as the Somali leadership, Somali government, is that we showed the real face of these terrorist groups to the Somali people, to the Somali nation. Now it is the people that realize that this and their principles, their way of life, their behavior does not fit to the rightful behavior of Somalia. Somalia is a very unique country with all the good qualities of a nation. We are one ethnic group, we are one religion, we have one language, but unfortunately because of bad politics in the past, we have certain grievances, and the terrorists, they benefit from the grievances. This is why they came to their weak institutions with social grievances in the country. That was how they originally preferred Somalia to come and stay there. So, but now things are changing. People are realizing now the state is growing up and it's providing services. That's what's more important now. This term, I was elected in 2022, and until now, we have recruited 6,000 teachers, public schools, and we've promised that we will be recruiting 10,000. We've established around 100 plus health posts all over. Those areas that has been liberated, we organized what we call the stabilization program to provide the society what they have missed for the last 17 years. No school, no health post, no water and sanitation in all those areas for 18 years. Now the government of Somalia is providing those services at its own capacity and with the help of international partners as well. So people are getting the message from the government that terrorists has no place in Somalia. That's what today we have. And I have taken the connotation that these terrorists, they are a fish swimming in the bone of water. If the water is drained from the bone, the fish cannot survive. That's the terrorists in Somalia today. Thank you.
When you analyze this predicament, I mean, many would argue that for there to be development, first you need to have security. But I think Somalia is a unique example in the sense that on the one hand, you have a balanced counterterrorism effort. You're also building state institutions, and you're also building an inclusive economy. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, the Somali state has opted that a private-driven economic model. The government is playing the regulatory role in the economy. That's what makes today Mogadishu, the capital city, as a bustling city with a real estate, with five-star hotels, with so many new things, major supermarkets, all international brands are available today in Mogadishu. That is the private that's making, and the government is facilitating all the necessary infrastructure for the private to do this type of business. Not only the Somalis, but as well as foreign companies as well. Turkish companies are there. They are running our international airport. Another company is running our seaport. They are also doing so many other businesses in the country. Similarly, there are other companies from other parts of the world as well. So that private-driven. And then we have provided two important instruments for that, supported the private-driven economy. One is the National Transformation Plan, which is fixing all the weaknesses of the state institutions so that they can take steps with the fast steps that the private is taking. The National Transformation Plan is a delivery-based from the government side so that the private entities will have all the necessary facilitation that they need in order to do the business. That's number one. Number two is we established a long-term vision, a vision we call it the Vision 2060. It's a centennial vision. Somalia has become an independent state in 1960, and in 2060 is a centennial stage, that 100 years of how Somalia will look like 2060. That's the picture that we portrayed to the private people, and we showed them this is the future, and this is the regulations and the tools and the instruments that helps you to make that type of investment so that you can be in that position. So that's how the government and the private are working hand in hand to do all these economic development endeavors.
Your Excellency, in your opening remarks, you had mentioned that Somalia is a member of the United Nations Security Council. Let me ask you about that. Do you feel that you have an extra responsibility as a flag bearer in terms of portraying a message on behalf of other developing countries or countries that are in a fragile situation?
Yes, absolutely. You're right. You said rightly. As I said earlier, we have been in a very, very difficult situation for a long time. 3 decades is not a very short period. We believe that morally we represent those nations and peoples throughout the world that has went through that suffering or are still in that difficult situation. So we wanted to be a voice for all those who have difficulties within them and who needs help, international help, or those who has been created by other forces, circumstances that take them to that level so that the United Nations Security Council can take those burden away from those nations. So you are absolutely right, Ali. We feel that we have that moral obligation to represent those people who are suffering in different corners of Somalia, in different corners of the globe, whether it's under development, whether it's security, whether it is any other exploitation that is taking place. and have a very limited voice, as we used it to be decades ago. We need to be a voice for that people.
Let me ask you the flip side to that question. How do regional actors and global powers help countries like Somalia, who are in fragile situations during these times that present some challenges?
Well, Ali, the world used to be a world of ideology, world of principles. In 21st century, the world is becoming a world of interests. And every country, every nation has some interests in it. But the question is, many of us, the least developed countries, we cannot articulate or we cannot sell the interests that are there in our country, number one. Or we cannot establish the necessary instruments that facilitate people to come and seek after these interests. So that's the challenge that many of the facing. So Somalia is trying to, of course, address those global powers or regional powers or neighbors, whatever, who got an interest in Somalia, to negotiate with them in a way that benefits both of us, mutual interest. Sometimes when it comes to interest, the problem some of the interest has is the interestee, the one who has the interest, would like to get the more. And the powerful one, the powerful partners always would like to take more than the less. So these are the challenges there, but today there is a possibility that it's all about, again, the state institution. Somalia has been there for thousands of years. Interests were there. Resources are there. Strategic locations are there. But the world has not focused to Somalia as they are focusing today because of the state institutions, the leadership that presents what benefits the world can have Somalia. We cannot be only a recipient of aid. We should not be permanently for the recipient. Now, we are trying to portray that the world can benefit from Somalia. For example, the African Union. First of all, this 21st century, we call it the century of Africa. It's all about Africa, whether it's human resources, whether it's natural resources, whether it's market, all. So African Union has two important initiatives. One is, it's called Agenda 2063, which is a centennial agenda. African Union was established in 1963, so 2063 is a centennial agenda, which is a developmental agenda, very clear. That's number one. Then to make sure that that continental agenda is achieved, Africa has established the African Continental Free Trade Area, whereby business and economic interest is that. Somalia, being on the most eastern tip of the African continent and having more than 3,300 kilometers of coastline in the Indian Ocean, the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea, we have a very strategic location that can be a gateway for Africa. So a lot of opportunities are there in Somalia to be a continental logistics hub. And it's one of the initiatives that we are selling, which a lot of people are standing for it now. So opportunities are always there, but it all depends on how can you present those opportunities and how can you negotiate those opportunities.
When a country is burdened by massive debt, it's very difficult for them to do anything, and it often leads to over-exploitation. There's a huge amount of debt relief on your country, in excess of $2 billion. $5
billion, yeah.
Do you feel that the international community is finally seeing the potential of Somalia to grant this debt relief so it can finally go into mutually beneficial partnerships?
Yes, two important aspects again here is that the international community has realized that there is a state institutions that can take the full responsibility of utilizing the local resources in a beneficial way to the public. That's the Somali state. And then the level of commitment, we went through a very serious transformation in our public finance management, in our economic regulations and all this. All those were what has convinced the international partners that Somalia is moving forward with a progressive thinking and mindset. So we did all the necessary reforms, whether it's the fiscal, whether it's the federalism way of doing things, and after more than a decade of going on with the IMF, the World Bank, the other international financing institutions, that a conclusion has been reached that Somalia is potential, so that debt is an obstacle to the progress of Somalia. So the debt has been cancelled and removed from Somalia. More than a year, almost a year, more than a year now, we are without any debt, but we didn't take any loan for that time, because we make a decision in our government that we will never take a loan unless we are sure that the loan we are taking will pay back by itself, or if the loan is for public service and public utility, that the government has other sources that we don't want loans to be accumulated again, and in a very short period of time, again, we go to the world and ask for debt relief. That's what has happened in many other countries. Based on that experience, Somalia, we are avoiding so far to take a loan unless we make sure that the country is secure enough, that the production sector and the economic sector is moving very fast, that we can pay back the loans that we are taking. So it depends again on the strength and the potentiality of the public institutions of any country to make sure that no more debts will be. Debt has been relieved to give Somalia an opportunity to move forward. Otherwise, we would have never moved anywhere. And we would have never attracted any investment if that debt is there hanging over us. But now we are attracting a lot of investment, a lot of interested people.
I want to talk about the fairly recent signing of the Ankara Declaration. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this marked a significant step forward in relations between Somalia and Ethiopia over the Somaliland port deal. I want to get firsthand some key factors that went into this, and in terms of how you envision future relations between Somalia and Ethiopia.
Well, as you rightly said, Somalia and Ethiopia are two neighboring countries. We have close to 2,000 kilometers of border, and we have a lot of commonalities. We have common people, we have common culture, we have, in some aspect, we have common language in some level. And we have a very long history of 700 years. This history was not a good one. It was a very violent history. The crusade, the jihad, and all types of things. And that history has ended in 1990 when both the Somali state and the Ethiopian state collapsed after all these long wars and all this. From there onward, we have been moving. We, from our side, from Somalia, we realized that that cannot be continued. Hostility, conflict, building. Both of us, we are poor countries. One of the main reasons that why we are poor countries for the last 1 century, we always have been building military. All our revenues, all our income was focused on building a huge military. Somalia has built one of the strongest army in the African continent in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Ethiopia did the same. And that build up of the military was the main reason why the status collapsed later on. Revolution after revolution, coup d'etat after coup d'etat. At the end, the states collapsed. So we're working together. Misunderstandings comes up here and there when neighbors are there, but now the Ankara Declaration has opened a new door for the future of our two countries. After the Ankara Declaration, I visited Addis Ababa and have a very good discussion with the leadership there. And then after that, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia has visited Mogadishu as well, have a very good discussion and dialogue. And then after that, even there is a lot of exchange of important and very VIP individuals on teams on both sides. And we are very much hopeful that the Ankara Declaration will be the opening door for a better future. But the discussions are still going on. We have another meeting after that here in Turkey, and we are going to have soon another one. So discussions we are going on, and what we want is that we don't have, from our side, Somalia, we don't have the leisure of conflict anymore. We don't want conflict with our neighbors. And we have a motto that Somalia in peace with itself and in peace with the world. So we wanted to live a peaceful relationship with our neighbors and with the world in general.
Sounds very similar to one of the mottos of the founding father of this country as well, peace at home, peace abroad.
Peace abroad.
Mr. President, if you were to allow me, there's a lot of interest to your panel, and I know that we have some journalists who want to ask you some questions. If you have any questions for His Excellency, if you could maybe stand up. Do we have a microphone? Yes. Maybe yes, over here.
Thank you so much, our brilliant moderator, Mr. Alijan, and Your Excellency. Thank you so much. Maybe if I begin with a quick banter about the ChatGPT, maybe the information that I will be gladly able to share is that Somalia is the founding member of the Organization of African Union, which is now the AU, and at the same time it is the first non-Arab country to join the Arab League. So it's a nation with a lot of history, and His Excellency has outlined it so well. So to begin with my first question, since you are in a diplomatic forum, I will start with the part of the diplomacy. Looking at the Somalia-Turkey relations, which had started previously from humanitarian development and is currently at a win-win cooperation. We have the oil exploration, we have the business partnership, economic and security. How do you assess this success for the people of Somalia and for the world as a model of cooperation? And what is your future expectations of this? My second and final question, Your Excellency, and our moderator is, last year we witnessed the Turkey-led Ankara Accord between Somalia and Ethiopia. And we've seen your subsequent visit to Addis Ababa, heightening cooperations between Somalia and Ethiopia, de-escalating the tensions. What lesson does Somalia give to the rest of Africa as far as also Somalia's contribution to mediation is concerned historically, where it used to take part in deflating tension between neighboring countries, and looking at the current situation in Sudan, in DRC, and other parts of Africa? Thank you so much. My name is Nuri from TRT Africa. Nuri.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nuri. First of all, the relationship between Somalia and Turkey, I would like to shortly and briefly say how this relationship has started and where it is today. A decade and a half ago, 2010-11, there was a famine in Somalia. 250,000 Somalis starved because of that famine. And the security was a problem, as always. And many of the international humanitarian agencies, they left Somalia claiming that Somalia is not secure enough to deliver. That was the time when President Erdogan who was the Prime Minister of Turkey at that time, visited Somalia, not only as a leader, to prove that Somalia can be accessed in terms of humanitarian. He brought there in Mogadishu his family and most of his cabinet. They were there. They visited the IDP camps. They visited all the streets of Mogadishu. President Erdogan, he got off his car and sit with the kids that are playing beside the road and asked them a lot of questions about their life. From there, the world it was unbelievable to anybody that such a prominent international leader goes to Mogadishu with his family and stays there in IDP camps without any significant visible protection or security or anything. That was a game changer. Because of that visit, everybody came back and lives were saved from there. Because of that visit, hospitals were promised, and today those hospitals are functioning in Mogadishu. Because of that visit, a city, Mogadishu, with a population of that time more than 2 million people, now more than 3 million people, garbage was everywhere, and the Turkish people, not only they sent that, but Turkish boys, they came there and cleaned the city with all the necessary heavy machinery. Istanbul municipality was taking that role and they cleaned the city even, helped us to clean the city, providing us all the necessary machinery to clean and remove the garbage of 20 plus years. So that has taken the world focus back to Somalia. Now, again, of course, since then Somalia has been progressing, and Somalia has a lot of Turkish companies come and invested. We have a new international airport terminal. We have a lot of new facilities for the seaport, where the services have been increased 3-4 times in many places. Now again, Somalia's problem is not famine today. Somalia's problem is the terrorists. Again, Turkey has provided training. Of course, the United States, the EU, the African Union, many other has been provided training our security forces and equipping them. But Turkey has today come up with the latest technology to support our security forces and expertise as well. They didn't say, take this equipment and go and fight. They came to us and show and fight with us against the terrorists. So taking the focus back, number 2. Number 3, nobody was coming and asking about oil and gas. This is the first time in the history that Somalia oil and gas reserves are under exploration now. Seismic service going up in the offshore, you have seen it. On the onshore, again, we signed another agreement. That does not mean that we are giving this opportunity to Turkey only, but it's the only country that demanded, the only country that become interested, and that's normal. The first move advantage is always there. Turkey cannot be compared with the companies that will come maybe 10 years later when Somalia become a better oil country. So that is the relationship between Turkey. And when there is a conflict between Somalia and its neighbors, Turkey come to mediate and, of course, make the settlement. So Turkey and Somalia has a genuine partnership based on mutual interest.
Okay. Mr. President, I think maybe perhaps swiftly move on to the second part of the question. I think it was what are some lessons that other parties can learn in terms of conflict resolution with your negotiations surrounding the Ankara agreement? I think the country, it was the DRC that you gave.
Yes, the same he said, the Ankara Declaration. The Ankara Declaration has come out of the genuine mediation that Turkey has made. It was not an abrupt, it was a process that a Turkish delegation visited Addis Ababa, they visited Mogadishu, they talked to us a lot of different teams come. It went through a process. They asked us, they asked the Ethiopia, and at the end, President Erdogan brought together myself and the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, and you know, we have a one complete day sitting together, and President Erdogan was sitting there from the morning till midnight. We were sitting together, and at the end we strike that deal. We were happy. Ethiopians were also happy. So that's it. What lessons can be learned is that, number one, you need an honest mediator that has no vested interest in other than peace. Turkey has a very good relationship with Somalia, as well as has a very good relationship with Ethiopia. And both Somalia and Ethiopia, Turkey has assisted them at different times in a difficult situation. So honest mediator or honest broker is a prerequisite for a successful war. That is what the best lesson that the world can learn from it.
Thank you. I think we have one more question.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Hamid Sayam. I am the representative.
There's a microphone there.
My name is Abdul Hamid Sayam, the representative of Al-Quds Al-Arabi at the United Nations. And I commend the Ambassador Abu Bakr Osman and his speeches on Palestine at the United Nations. There is a talk about recognizing Somaliland in the north. If they accept the deported Palestinians to settle in Somaliland, it's a challenge for your country and for the Palestinians and for the world that should be controlled by international law, not by the law of the jungle, as some major power trying to advocate now. So what is your opinion on this? How can you incorporate Somaliland or reach out to them so this thing could not happen? Because if it is recognized, then it might be very hard to go back and unite both the north and the south. Thank you.
Abdul Hamid, thank you very much. First of all, the cause of the Palestinian people, it is a moral responsibility and a religious responsibility. Qudus and Palestine. So it is an issue that Somalia has never compromised and is not going to compromise, whatever our capacity or our ability is. What we want is a peaceful resolution, as the world has recognized it, two-state solution, that Palestine state is there, Israeli state is there, and peaceful coexistence between the Palestinian people and the Jewish people is the best option, and that's what we all want to see, and we hope it will. Regarding the other issues, Somaliland is part of Somalia. It's not a... Well, as you rightly said, we are not talking about the law of the jungle. If someone comes and says, we cut this country, we cut this part from this country, and that's another case. So Somaliland is a part of Somalia, and no one has ever approached Somalia for receiving Palestinian people as replacement of their land. We don't see it as a solution. It's not whether someone recognizes or not recognizes it, but the idea of removing Palestine from their own land and putting them into other people's land, I don't see that that's a solution at all. If it is a solution, then it would have been discussed some way or the other. But that's not. Palestine belongs to that land. And they have been leaving that land for millennia, and definitely they will. So no one has ever approached it to us. And if someone says, I recognize X, Y, Z as an independent country, That's not the way the world works. Individual countries can say that, but that will not be very effective. It will only create more problem, more conflict, and more. That will not be, by saying that or by doing that, there will not be a conducive environment for putting other people there. So I'm not hopeful on that. We will hope that, as you rightly said, the world will get back to its mind and this problem will be resolved. We are very much grateful for those countries who are actively involved in resolving that issue.
Okay, I think we have time for one more.
Assalamu alaikum, Mr. President. Very welcome to Turkey again. My name is Tunç Demirtaş from SETA Foundation. Under your presidency, the Somali Prime Minister is in Hamza Barre, is in Lasanot, SSC Hatuma today. This is the historical visit because there was a conflict in that area a couple of months, a year ago. What do you think about the historical visit? Thank you.
Well, we're sorry for what has happened in that part of Somalia, and local conflicts always emerge. But Somalia, the federal government of Somalia was not part of that conflict, and we are not going to be part of that local conflict. And one of the main reasons that the Prime Minister went there is to resolve those conflicts. The Prime Minister is not there to create more conflict, as some of the social media people are saying. The Prime Minister is there to solve, because that conflict is dormant. It's not resolved. It's not resolved yet. There are prisoners or detainees in both sides. So there are still conflicts that has not been peacefully resolved. So the Prime Minister is there to create a conducive environment where negotiations can take place, because there are certain obstacles for the genuine negotiations to take place, and Prime Minister is visiting there to remove some of those obstacles so that the two parties, the two groups can sit together, can negotiate and reconcile peacefully.
Mr. President, thank you very much for sharing your insights, as well as your perspectives. I think your leadership during these testing times, these transformative times, is crucial, not only in terms of transforming your country, but also the Horn of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in showing our appreciation to His Excellency's commitment to dialogue and cooperation. Thank you for your presence here at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum.
Thank you.